All right, ladies and gentlemen, last class we worked on putting together our automata box, and today's going to get fun because we're going to start making some cams, talking about motion. This is going to help you try and visualize what you want to do with your own physical automata, and at the same time, we're going to learn a little bit about cams and how they work. So, first thing I need you to do is I need to make sure that you have your crank in the same way I have mine in. So here's the way to do that is go to this Revolute mate that you made, and we're gonna right click on that and hit animate. Okay, just hit play and then just stop it at some point. And then close it. And what should happen is it should go back to close to its own. Well, it's off a little bit, but I want to make sure that the 0 degrees is going towards the top. So right now it's at 37. So here's how to do that again. We're going to right click and animate. And then notice that the start value is 0 degrees and it reciprocates. Now, 300 steps to do that is a long time. So let's change that to like 75. So it moves a lot faster, and hit play. And what you need to do is notice that where it stops, mine's being a little glitchy because it's having a hard time. I need to make sure that 0 degrees is straight up. Okay. Now, another way to do that is go a single time. And there we go. So with a single time with it 0 degrees, it's pointing straight up. If it doesn't do that, what needs to happen is go ahead and again, this is only if that didn't work for you, delete that constraint, that revolute, and put this crank in again. So where we make sure, now it should have gone in normally the right way, but let's try that again. I want to Revolute mate, click here. Again, this is only if it wasn't pointing straight up for you. I'm going to come click over here. Okay. And when it goes in, you need to make sure that it's straight up. If it's not straight up, you can flip it until it is straight up. That's where 0 degrees will be, and click the check mark. Okay, and we're good. Okay, now we're going to use that Revolute a lot. So let's come over here before we do anything else and right click on there and rename it and just call it crank. And that way we know where we're going to go over here to make things turn. All right, here we go. We're going to start working on cam. All right, let's see what. There we go. Don't know what happened there. All right. Let's start a new part studio. All right. And we are going to call this Start Part Studio before we get going. Let's just rename it and call it Polygon Cam. All right, now to make it easier for these things to orient when we put them in, it's best to sketch on the right view. It will line up better. If you go to your assembly, this is the right, so it will kind of line up. So let's go back to Polygon Cam. I'm gonna sketch on the right. And as always, P turns off planes, N views normal. And we're going to create a polygon up here. So it doesn't matter whether it's inscribed or circumscribed. We're just creating one. We're going to click, whoops, there we go. Click on the middle, go outwards. Now make sure you're going straight up like this so it's flat on the top and the bottom. We're going to come out, click. Okay, I do want 6 sides, so I'm going to click again. Okay, and now we're going to dimension this from the flat to the flat as 2.5 inches. Will work well. And we're going to put a circle in the middle where the shaft is going to go through. and that's going to be 5/16. 5/16, and there's our hole in the middle. I'm going to finish our sketch and extrude, and we're going to extrude to 0.2. That's how thick that wood is that we're making these things out of. Good. And finally, now normally, like when we laser cut these, it's this shape, but what we're going to do next in the assembly won't work with these sharp corners. So I need you to come up here and fillet them. This 0.2 default will work just fine. And we're going to click on all of these edges to round them over. Make sure you get all of them. Make sure you clicked all 6 corners, and good. All right, that makes sure that the riser is going to be able to ride on top of this. All right, now we're ready to place this polygon cam. Let's go ahead and rename the part. Let's go ahead and call this polygon cam also. Just to make sure we know what's what. You can make it whatever color you want. In fact, I just edit appearance. I'm going to make the first one orange. Whew, that is bright orange. All right, fine. Now, in your assembly, pay close attention because this is going to get a little tricky. We are going to insert this polygon cam that we just made. Click somewhere. Okay, finish inserting it. And we're going to do this fastened mate that holds everything in place. So we're going to choose this fastened mate. Now watch carefully how I'm going to do this. I'm going to choose this hole. Notice that fastener shows up in the hole. And then for the other where we're going to connect it, I'm going to hover over this shaft. And notice right in the middle of the shaft, a connector will show up. Click on that. Now, don't click OK yet. What's going to happen is we're going to rotate this and we're going to look up at the top. See how we it makes it transparent? We can see through this. Go to your view cube and click on the top. Now, what I need to do is I need to get this centered in this left hole. So we're going to offset this. Now I have the Z direction. You should probably have the Z direction too. Now my guess is that it's going to want it to move it to the right if I put in a number. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it on top of this hole. So let's just try 1.5. Enter will give us a preview. Yeah, move the wrong way. So I'm going to go negative 1.5. Enter gives me a preview. Now I'm going to zoom in to show you what I'm talking about here. Notice that I'm not quite centered in there. So I'm going to play around with this until I get a little bit bigger. Let's try 1. Or a little closer to the middle. Let's try 1.6 and see what happens. That was too far. So let's try 1.55. Now your holes might be a different spot. Okay. Now, as long as I can see a little bit of space on each side of that hole, that's fine. So you can just kind of keep playing around with it until you get it fairly centered. Now, again, your number may not be the same as mine, because I think when we made these holes, we didn't worry about where that first hole was. So you're going to have to play around with the numbers until you get it centered on that hole. Okay, that's important for the next step. Once you've got it in there, and again, you can see that there's a little bit of space on each side of it, then we're good. All right. Now, I do not need that to stay open. Let's go check out our box here. And now, just for fun, I'm going to animate the crank. Animate. I'm going to go to loop because I want to see it go a bunch of times. I happen to know I want it to go as if I was cranking it, flipping it. And again, I'll change my steps to like 75 to make it faster. And let's see what this is looking like. Whoops, I want it to go the other way. There we go. Cool. All right. So we're looking good with that. All right. Now, next step, we got to get our risers ready. We're going to get 5 of them and get out of there. So let's create a new part studio. Let's rename this part studio as risers. We're going to make all 5 of them in one part studio. Now for this one, we should sketch on the top, right click, new sketch on the top. P gets rid of planes, N views normal. And we're going to make 5 1/4 inch. The risers are a different size than the other things. So we're going to click and we're going to make this 0.25. Now you can either pattern this or you can just make a bunch of other ones. I think I'll just make a bunch of other ones. 0.5. Kind of in a row. 5. And finally, all right, good. Now we are going to make different extrusions each time because we're going to have to change the values of these. So let's go ahead and extrude. We're going to do this one. Let's do each one at 2.5 inches for now. 2.5. Enter, enter. Now my sketch went away. I got to go turn it back on. Okay, we're going to extrude the next one to 2.5. And it's going to make a new part every time and continue that until you've got all 5. And once you've got all 5 of them, you can make them whatever colors you want. They do need to be separate parts down here. We're going to fillet the ends of each of these. Now, it was important that you made this exactly 0.25 in diameter for each one. We're going to fillet then the bottom of this. So choose the circle at the bottom, and we're going to make that fillet 0.125, which is half of 0.25, and it's going to just round it over. It's going to make it a spherical end. Okay, and we're going to do that for each one. In fact, I'm going to go back to fillet and choose all of them. Okay, and so it will round all of them over. Can turn off that sketch one now. Cool. Now we're going to name these risers for the cams that they are going to go on. So the first one, we're going to right click, rename, and that one is going to be for the polygon. So let's call it polygon riser. Let's call number 2 is going to be the eccentric riser for the eccentric cam. Next one is going to be pear, as in the shape of a pear, riser for the pear cam. We are going to make the next one be called snail riser for the snail cam. And finally, the next one is going to be custom, because you're going to make a custom cam. Custom riser. All right, good deal. All right, good. Now, here's where the fun comes in. So I'm going to go back to the assembly, and we are going to put in from the risers, expand it using this little drop down, and I'm going to put in the polygon riser. Now, it is important that we do these separate from each other because I'm going to ask you to adjust the length of things. So good, we've got the polygon riser in. All right, now here comes the fun. What we need to do is we need to put this through that hole, and we're going to use a slider mate so that it can move and slide through that hole, right? So up here is slider. Now, it doesn't really matter what we choose, but as long as it's part of the diameter. But if you kind of zoom in here, notice that you can choose kind of the center or end or whatever. I usually just choose the middle. Click there of that cylinder. And then I'm going to come up here to this first hole, and I'm going to click so that that axis is going the same way. Once that looks good, hit check. You should be able to grab this and slide this up and down. Notice it breaks the laws of physics and actually goes through there. All right, now I don't want that open anymore. I'm gonna move this slider up so I can see both the polygon cam and the slider above it with a little bit of space in between. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make this connected to that through what's called a tangent mate. We're going to make this surface tangent to that. And that's why we had to make these little arched parts so that this whole thing is one surface. So here we go. Up here is, where is it? I'm blind right now. There we go. Is this tangent mate. So we're going to click on tangent. We're going to click on this bottom bulb of this. Now, for whatever reason, it sometimes doesn't work. There we go. It needs to turn kind of that orange color. So you might have to even click twice. And then we're going to click this surface. Make sure you click the surface that is right below it. Click. And notice it will highlight this whole edge all the way around. That is what should happen. If that doesn't happen, try again. And we're going to say, good. Check. Now, here comes the fun stuff. That is now connected. So when we take this crank and we move it, it should move up and down. So that riser is going to move up and down with polygon cam. And if we come back here to our crank and animate it, and we say, I want to go in a loop, and I want to go, again, make it faster by going 75. Cool. Fun. I've done this lots of times and I still have fun with it. All right. Excellent. All right. Let's get into the eccentric cam. The eccentric cam is where we're going to do something a little bit different. So here is, I've got, this picture is in the assignment also if you want to take a look at it. There's a circle that I'm not going to deal with right now because a circle does not do any displacement. It just rotates things. We'll talk about that more later. We're going to make this one called the eccentric cam. Now you'll notice that there's no specific values in here. It tells you there's a through hole. Now ours is going to be 5/16, and that there's a certain diameter. That's what we call the nominal diameter. It's what are we calling it? What are we saying that it is? We get to decide. But what's critical is the location from the center point of this larger cam to the center point of this through hole is always going to be whatever the diameter is divided by 4. So the cool thing in most 3D modeling programs is that you can do what's called parametric modeling. Well, you already do it because you're lining things up and making certain things related to each other. But we can define what we mean by that. So let's do that. Go back into, well, what we need to do is we need to start a new part studio. Let's do that. And let's rename this. Let's drag this down here and we'll rename it as eccentric cam, ECCENTRIC, eccentric cam. All right, now we're going to again sketch on the right. Actually, I'm sorry, we're not going to sketch yet. If you did hit sketch, just hit escape and undo and get back to this point. What we're going to do is we're going to set up our parameters. We're going to set up our values. And the way to do that is we're going to create some variables. So up here next to the plane, if this drop-down menu, is this variable. And we're assigning a variable. Now what we're going to do is name it. Now, I do some shorthand for this. I'm going to name it diam, okay? It's a stand for diameter. We try and keep these variables short. And the value, when we click on that, I'm going to make the value 2 inches. Okay, and hit enter. And enter again. And notice over here, it has created this variable for me called #diam, right? Which has a certain value. Now, here's what's cool about parametrics. I can go in now, I'm going to create another variable. This one I am going to call offset. And this one is going to be hashtag diameter. So when you start typing in the hashtag, which is shift 3, right? Click on diameter, but we're going to make that diameter, whatever diameter is, divided by 4. Enter, enter, and now I have an offset. Now, right now, that value is 0.5, okay, because that is what this value is divided by 4. I'm going to show you how to deal with this in just a moment. So now we're ready to start sketching. So we're going to sketch on the right, new sketch. P gets rid of planes, N views us normal. And we're going to go ahead and draw a circle. We're going to hook it up to the center point on the origin. Okay, drag it out and click. Now what's going to happen is in here, last time I tried this, it didn't work. You should be able to shift. Now it wants to flip it around. So, okay, what we're going to do is we're just going to click. Okay, we're not going to define it. Okay, or hit escape or whatever you need to do. So we're not going to put in a number. So that's why it's blue. It can be variable size. Now I'm going to go to dimension and dimension this circle. Click, but this time, instead of entering a value, I'm going to hold the shift key down and hit the 3 button to put in hashtag. I'm going to click on, I want diameter to be that. Enter. Okay. And notice it put it as 2 because I defined it as that. Now I am going to make the hole that the shaft is going to go through. So we're going to line that hole up with the center. Notice the yellow line shows up. I'm going to make sure it lines up. And I'm going to just click in a random spot. Click again to make sure, I'm making sure it's lined up and down. And this is a 5/16 size hole. It's always going to be 5/16. Now, here's the cool part. We're going to dimension from the center point of the main cam to the center point of the hole as, ready, hashtag, we're going to call it offset. Enter. Okay. And now we're ready to go ahead and extrude this cam. Now we're going to play with this in just a second. So good with sketch, we're going to extrude everything but the hole, and we're going to go to 0.2. All right. Now, here is the beauty of doing parametric modeling. Let's say that I decide that this is not moving my riser enough, and I wish that it was a little bit bigger. Okay. Come over here to my parameter or my variable and change that to 2.5. So go ahead and do that. Change it to 2.5. Now you will notice, you hopefully notice that it got a little bit bigger, but this dimension is still 1/4 of the diameter. Notice it changed it a little bit. Now you don't need to do this. I'm just going to show you for fun. If I went here and I changed it to 10 inches, it makes it huge. It won't even fit in the box now, but this location is still 1/4 of the diameter distance. It's just that hole always stayed 5/16. All right, so that's why parametric modeling is cool. So I'm going to come back here, double click on that, set it back to 2.5 inches. Let's set it at that. All right, cool. So we've got our eccentric cam. Let's come down here to part 1, rename it, call it eccentric cam. Good deal. Make it whatever color you want. Aquamarine. All right, and let's go back to our assembly. And we are going to insert the eccentric cam. And we're going to insert, let's expand the risers. We're going to put in the eccentric riser. Good. Let's do what we did before. We are going to do a fastened mate. I'm going to put it right here, connected to that middle part again. Now, this time is going to be a little bit different. before I line it up, I'm going to flip it twice because I want the smallest distance from the shaft to the edge of the cam to be when this is up. So make sure it's oriented that way by using this little flip tool. And now, once again, we're going to look at the top of this. Okay, and I'm going to move this offset in a negative Z direction again. Let's try negative 0.75. That's too much. Let's try negative 0.70. And again, you might have different numbers that you'll have to play around with. Let's try negative 0.65. And again, you're going to have to do this same thing that I'm doing with different values until you, again, get it to where you can see a gap on each side. Let's try 5.7. There we go. Okay, so you got to, again, play around with it. Try 5.6. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay, to get it set into the right spot with gaps on each side. And again, we're going to take our riser and do a slider mate. Oops, chose revolute. It's not what I meant. Slider, choose the middle of the cylinder and the hole that it's going into. Good. Okay. And we are going to do that. Let's get rid of that. It stayed open. That tangent mate. Choose that bulby area. Again, you have to click on it twice on that to make it highlighted. I'm not sure why. Choose this surface. Now, this is an interesting thing that happened where it flipped down inside of it. So if you flip this arrow, if that happens to you, that'll bring it up. I don't know why it does that. I think it does this as if this went all the way around. Good. And let's see how we're doing with that one. Let's go to our slider and animate, and let's go loop. No, not slider. I am so sorry. I want to go to my crank. There it is. Animate. I'm going to loop it, and I'm going to go like 75 because it's faster. And let's see how we do. Cool. All right. Now, let's take a look at this and see, oh boy, we're really close to hitting the top, aren't we, on that eccentric cam. So this is where the beauty of parametric modeling comes in. I'm going to go back to my eccentric cam. I'm going to change that diameter back to 2 so it has a little bit more space in it. Good. That will be reflected in the assembly. Check it out. Updated. Okay, now we have a little bit more space. All right. Video's at 28 minutes. Let's do one more. All right, we're going to create a new part studio. We're going to rename this as PairCam. We're again going to set up our parameters. So let's see what we've got for a pair cam. Now our pair will look slightly different than this, but it's going to have some similarities to it. Now we have a radius of diameter divided by 2. Now that's what they're calling this whole thing. I'm going to call that a diameter again. Then we have a offset of diameter divided by 2. And I'm going to call this one small radius. And I'm going to make this one bigger for ours, which is diameter divided by, I'm going to make mine diameter divided by 4 instead of divided by 8, because I don't want it to have quite that big of a peak. So here we go. We're going to set this up. I might have to come back because I forget, but we'll figure this out. So come back to your pair cam. Before we start sketching, we're going to go and set up a variable. First one is going to be called diameter again. and it is going to again be 2 inches. We are going to do another one that I am going to call offset. And that is going to be hashtag diameter divided by 2. Enter. Let me make sure I got that the way I think that it is. Yes, the offset is diameter divided by 2. And then we're going to have another one, and I'm going to call that SM radius. I don't think you can have any spaces, so I'm going to call that small radius, and that is going to be hashtag diameter divided by 4. Good. All right, so we've got our 3 things set up. Now we're ready to start sketching. So right click, new sketch on the right. P gets off planes and for normal. And let's go ahead and start with a circle on the bottom. Now this is going to be a little tricky. We're going to click, and again, I'm going to just click outside of it somewhere or hit escape. Use the dimension tool to come over here, and I'm going to type in hashtag diam. Or when it pops up, click on it, enter. Now we're going to create another circle up here. Now I think I remember what's going to happen. That was a radius, so it should work out okay. We'll see what happens. I might need to change my variable. I'm going to line up with this and come way up here, okay, because I don't want to be overlapping yet. Just make a random circle, kind of like that. Click, and again, escape, because I'm not going to put in the diameter now. I'm going to put in the dimension of this guy and hashtag, and we're going to call that small radius. Enter. Now, that is too small. I meant it to be twice that. So here's the cool thing. I don't think I can change this while I'm in a sketch. I'm going to try. Oh, it did let me. Oh, but it turned off the sketch. I'm going to have to go back there. I want that to be diameter divided by 2. Good, good. Now notice it changed it in the sketch. So now I can go back into sketch 1. And now we're going to dimension from this center point to that center point. Let me make sure that that's what I remember. Yes, yes. Okay, we're going to dimension from the center point of this to the center. Okay, that again. Center point of that. An entity cannot be dimensioned to itself. Yeah, thanks, I know. And that one is going to be hashtag offset. Enter. Okay. Now, that is not what I wanted it to be either. So that is not what I wanted, because that's going to make a really small pair of caps. I'm going to undo what I just did. Undo to leave that out. I'm going to change this again to my offset. Instead of diameter divided by 2, I'm going to have it be the diameter divided by 1. Let's try 1.25. I want this to be the right shape. Let's try this again. Go back into sketch 1, dimension again from here to hashtag offset. Enter. That is looking much, much better. All right. Now, in most of the things you see, you'll see a straight line coming up here. I have found that that doesn't work that well. So we're going to make some arcs instead of straight lines. Now, here's how this is going to work. You're going to come up here to your 3-point arc command. It's the first one in these arcs. We're going to hover over here. Now, I want to line up where I click with both the circle, and I want to line it up horizontally with the midpoint there. I'm going to click. Then I'm going to pull up here and notice we're making an arc, right? I'm going to click on this. I'm going to make it somewhere right about there and hook it onto, make sure it's highlighted, onto that guy. Now we can move in and out and all over the place, but we're going to make it about looking like that. Click. Okay. Now we're going to make our other one on the other side. So we're 3-point arc again. Again, we're going to hover over the middle. It's a little hard to see with that dimension line there, but I am lined up horizontally, and hook to the circle, click. Now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go about where I was. It's okay that it's lining up inside. Click, because now I'm going to pull it over here and click. All right. Now we need to make sure that those are tangent. That's really important. So we're going to come up here to our constraints, find tangent, and we're going to make this line, click, tangent to that circle, click. Then we're going to make the other side tangent to that circle, click. Notice it moved a little bit. Now I'm going to make this tangent to that. Okay. Now I want to undo that because I want to show you a problem that might happen to you. Move this down here. If this is way down here and I hit tangent and I hit this tangent to that, it's going to do that, which is not what I want. Undo. So if it's way down there, you might need to grab this and kind of move it up here a little bit somewhere towards the top. And again, I'm going to go tangent, make that tangent to that. I'm going to now, the last one is to make this tangent to that. And everything should have turned black. Okay. All right. Now we're going to use the trim tool to get rid of these lines that I don't want, like this one and that one. Okay. Now this is pretty tall. I might need to go back and change the height of that. And I think I probably will do that. So we're going to make another circle here for the shaft hole. And that is going to be, guess what? 5/16. Okay. All right. Now, last thing we do before putting this thing in there is this is way too tall. So I'm going to go back and change my offset distance one more time. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and finish my sketch. Change my offset distance one more time. Instead of diameter divided by 1.25, I'm going to make it divided by 1.5. Enter, enter. Yeah, and it brought it down to a little bit more reasonable of a size. That's looking pretty good. And we're going to extrude this to 0.2. All right, excellent. Make it whatever color you want it. Now, that's enough for today, except for I just don't want to put this in. We'll make it work next time. So let's insert the pair cam because we're getting a little long on our video. Good. We're going to put our fasten mate in there just like we did with the other ones. Line it up. Again, I am going to flip it until it's the opposite direction. So the short end is going to be sticking up when this handle is up. And we're going to offset it. Again, click on the top of your view cube. This time we're going in a positive direction. So Z, let's try 0.75 and see where that goes. Whoa, that's way too much. Let's try 0.5. Let's try 0.45. And again, I'm going to have to just experiment with it. Let's try 0.43. That's looking good. All right. And that is good enough for the day. We'll put in the riser next time because this video is getting a little long. If you want to put in the riser and connect it, go ahead. But I'll show that next time. All right, guys, we're going to take a picture of this with your 3 cams in it and your 2 risers. And we will work on animating this a little bit more next time.